Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and the numbers you've been told regarding COVID are completely falsified, not to mention completely misleading, and they're leading people to their demise. The real numbers may surprise you. Today we're going to get into those numbers as I wrote on Facebook here on this post. But you know what? I'm not going to read the post directly from Facebook. I'm going to read the post directly from Flote.app, which is an alternative to Facebook, which I'd rather read this post from because they're not censoring people. Anyways, as I wrote, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but these are straight facts. COVID-19 deaths are at 1.18 million worldwide. Tuberculosis is set to hit 1.8 million this year. Considering what the CDC says themselves, about 94% of all COVID deaths are actually from something else that COVID may or may not have triggered. Only 6% are actually from COVID. That brings deaths down to about 70,800. That puts whooping cough higher at 160,700 deaths per year, though even adjusted, it would at the very least be equal. According to the World Health Organization, 650,000 people die a year from respiratory illnesses stemming from the flu. Imagine the number you would get if you counted all people who died with the flu, like they have with COVID. If 70,800 people died from respiratory ailments that stemmed from COVID, and there's 650,000 people who've died from respiratory ailments that stemmed from the flu, if we consider that as a mere 6% of the total number who've died with the flu, that would put the number up to 10,833,333. Nearly 11 million people died with the flu on average each year based on that rough estimate. Some people will say that's assumptive. Well, so is the COVID number if you consider the CDC's own analysis showing only 6% of people died from the actual ailment and not something else like diabetes, a heart attack, cancer, pneumonia, or other things which happened while they had the ailment. Something that easily could have happened regardless of the actual ailment, whether it was a flu, cold, or COVID, which still has not been fully isolated. Regardless of if it's half of the above number or double, regardless of the case, 11 million is way higher than COVID. So why has the world been locked down twice over something with a 99.997% survival rate that kills less than other ailments? The numbers are played with to benefit their numbers to justify 28 million people facing homelessness in the United States, 9 out of 100, and 81% of independent restaurants facing insolvency. This will lead to starvation worldwide. This will lead to billions of desperate and dependent people. You wonder who benefits? The governments of the world solely benefit from billions of dependent people willing to do anything to survive, including getting a needle in their arm in order to continue living life. This is not only extortion, it's fraud. And it's one of the most dangerous attacks on basic free humanity in the history of the world. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Now, we, in this post, included all of the sources from the CDC, the Google list, which I can bring up on the screen here. Let's get this up here. It shows the deaths, 1.18 million deaths. This is very simple stuff, folks. We can look at the tuberculosis deaths that are set to hit 1.8 million people this year. It's supposed to kill 1.8 million people this year. Of course, it's not as contagious as the COVID illness they claim is. And of course, you have to consider asymptomatic cases and all that kind of stuff. But that's a factual source. We have the CDC's own papers here regarding the fact that whooping cough has killed hundreds of thousands of people. And if you consider that case, we have 160,000 deaths per year, according to a recent publication modeling this data. So the peak year CDC reported 48,277 cases in the United States alone in 1 year. Obviously lower than COVID, but if you consider the math that I just did up there, bringing it down to about 70,800 deaths from the actual illness, not the 96 or 94% of cases that were people who died with COVID, just like, as I mentioned, 650,000 people who die a year with the flu, then that brings the number down. But people don't talk about people who died with the flu. They only talk about people who died with COVID because it benefits the numbers, it benefits the fear, and the pharmaceutical companies that make hundreds of billions of dollars off of this fear, of course they benefit. And on top of that, they're the #1 sponsor of almost every TV station, these guys. So, I mean, who benefits? Cui bono? I think we know who benefits. And we have all the other sources here as well. Might as well bring it up on the screen. As I mentioned, up to 650,000 people die of respiratory diseases linked to seasonal flu each year. It's linked to, it's people who have gotten those symptoms from the flu viruses. And of course, finally, we have to ask the question, why would they manipulate these numbers? And obviously I went into that, but I do have to point out that this is more than just faulty numbers. You have to remember that they created a bioweapon. Now, what evidence do I have of that? Well, Dr. Fauci, who is the head of the Institute for Allergies and Infectious Diseases, was getting millions of dollars for about 4 years in grants from the U.S. government to study coronavirus in bats that's 96% similar to the novel coronavirus at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, the very place that the World Health Organization won't investigate into their investigation into the origins of the virus. They'll only investigate around Wuhan at the wet market, but not the place that studied the bats from the Yan'an caves that had 96% similarity to the virus. And the point of the study was how to spread it to humans. And that's all declassified. That's all out there. The fact that that's not talked about every day on the news really it goes to show who owns the media, and who owns the media controls the minds of the masses. And we've seen that because people walk like zombies, and even the people that don't believe in it, they LARP for the most part. Most people just walk endlessly, follow the arrows on the sidewalk or in the aisles, wear their mask, and submit. And this is extremely dangerous because we are entering into that second lockdown scenario. They're talking about force vaccinating people, and maybe it'll be voluntary in the sense that it's consensual, because if you don't get it, you won't be able to go to the store, have a bank account. It's all tied to the social credit system. You won't be able to do anything, travel, and if you don't get the vaccine. But you can go without getting the vaccine. They won't force it in your arm. You just won't be able to do anything. So it's voluntary. I think that's called coercion. And people keep saying it's a collective responsibility of the populace. Well, first of all, freedom is responsibility, but not any kind of responsibility. It's individual responsibility. It's individualistic. It's very different from collective responsibility, which is a polar opposite of individual responsibility. Individual responsibility is freedom. Collective responsibility is slavery. It's subservience to a cult, a collective. For the greater good of the greater number. That's what Hitler said. That's what Mao said. That's what Stalin and Lenin said. So if we haven't learned a lesson from the past, we're doomed to repeat it. At least, as Mark Twain says, history doesn't repeat, but it certainly does rhyme. And it's rhyming in a more technological, technocratic fashion than we've ever seen before. And of course, this connection with China has gone back a long way. It's not just China. The U.S. has propped up China against the populace because they've been used as a guinea pig state. Henry Kissinger meeting with Mao Zedong in the early 1970s, leading to an artificial trade route and monopoly for China with the United States, where they could sell goods in the United States, but the United States couldn't sell goods in China, leading on to the creation of the Trilateral Commission under Zbigniew Brzezinski, who worked, of course, under Jimmy Carter, and the creation of a technocratic superstate. As Zbigniew Brzezinski put it, he wanted to see a global technocracy. And that would lead to a cashless system based in social credit. If your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's a bank's. If your money's always going through the banks via digital transactions and legal tender laws, it's never your money, it's always a bank's, and you are enslaved to the banking system then. Of course, it's perfect. You tie that to a social credit score and you have it made. You can't do anything, can't go anywhere, can't buy anything without utilizing the social credit score, which could get you turned down to actually buy anything because everything's on loan from the bank. And if you say bad things about the government online, like we see in China, you might get interrogated and tortured, but 100% you won't be able to buy things. You won't be able to have a good life. That's why there's so many people who've left China in fear, because their life has been destroyed. They have facial recognition everywhere. They get tracked everywhere. You don't need a chip in your arm. They just track you everywhere. And it's based on social credit systems. And if you jaywalk, you get an instant fine to your phone and you're shamed on a giant billboard. I mean, this is real. This is happening, and they are trying to do this in Australia. They have for years. They've been eliminating the monetary supply as much as possible and going as cashless as possible. Weirdly enough, it's happening in Sweden too. Even though Sweden didn't lock down, it's worth pointing out that it is happening. And I do want to point out another thing that is very convenient, as the True Pundit has reported on. Exclusive: Bill Gates negotiated $100 billion contact tracing deal with Democratic Congressman sponsor of bill 6 months before coronavirus pandemic. Well, isn't that interesting? August 2019, he was competing for that contact tracing app. And at the end of the year, at the new year, he said, I'm looking really fondly on my vaccine portfolio for 2020, smiley face. You've been played, folks. Wake up. Wake up now, or forever hold your peace and go down with a ship. For the love of God, it's for the basis of humanity, the continuation of just basic humanity, basic freedoms. They're already locking down Europe. They're going to lock down everywhere again. It was leaked out of the Canadian government that they were planning to create another lockdown scenario based on a mutation of COVID called, get this, COVID-21, where everyone who already had it can get it again, and it's more dangerous, and the lockdowns will be more strict. And that came out weeks before they suddenly decided again to start locking everything down. In France, they're looking at it. In Germany, they're looking at it. In Italy, Spain, state of emergency, coming to a place near you soon. Do something now, folks, or else you're very much screwed. Millions out of work. And they say, well, maybe if you just wear a mask and go along with it, you'll get your freedoms back. Yeah, give up your freedoms to get them back. That's, again, very Orwellian. And it won't work. You won't get it back. It's an incremental frog boil until you accept anything, and literally everything they throw at you for the greater good of the greater number. None of this is for anyone's greater good, other than the government, which can't exist unless they always grow in size and scope and control, and they will continue. And as long as people go along with this and LARP and just walk blindly like a zombie, they are going to continue doing this, and it's going to screw over everyone. Everyone's going to be screwed by the end of this. And I mean, they already are. 28 million people facing homelessness and 81% of independent restaurants facing insolvency. Everyone's going out of business. They decide who's essential and not essential. Talk about Nazi Germany. I mean, it's so insane. And yet people just keep going along with it. Anyway, we'll continue to cover this. I know there's stuff I didn't hit on here, but I wanted to go into this in a quick video. Anyway, it's gone longer than I expected, so I appreciate everyone watching. Hit the like button. We have been deleted off of YouTube because of talking about things like this. So make sure to find us on BitChute, LBRY/Odysee, as well as Flote.app. We're also on Minds. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter at World Alt Media, all that kind of stuff. But mostly the three main alternatives: BitChute, LBRY, and Flote. Also, go to our Twitter at World Alt Media and retweet our pinned tweet about being deleted from YouTube to put pressure on Team YouTube. And of course, join our newsletter at www.iambanned.com. It takes 2 seconds. We really appreciate it. It just takes an email. We won't spam. It's free. Also, we have a merchandise store, and we have a Bitcoin address below that you can give to, and a CoinTree link, which will show all of the different cryptocurrencies you could donate to. We'll have a Bitcoin QR code up on the screen for you to scan if you want right away after this. Also, GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar. We need those pledges, guys. We need to bring in just $1 or more a month from you guys. We really appreciate everyone who has participated in that so far. Thank you so much. Share this video far and wide, folks. This is very controversial stuff because it's the truth, and the truth shall set us free. Anyway, until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
Thank you for watching our recent video. Behind me is the Jekyll Island Club, which is where the Federal Reserve was formed. And so in addition to making content and in addition to making different YouTube videos and library videos, I'm also a financial advisor with a great track record. 2019 we had got almost all the gains of the S&P 500, and then when everything hit the fan in March of 2020, we had almost none of the losses. What I'd really recommend, if you have not seen it, is check out my speech where it was given February 11th down in Acapulco, Mexico, uploaded to YouTube February 19th. And at the end of that video, I did a little GoPro commercial, sort of like I'm doing now, that was ad-libbed, where I told people what the investment strategy was. I told people that what we had did is we were long the S&P 500 while also buying put options on the S&P 500. And what that meant was that was how we were able to get this, because I knew the market was going to either keep going up because of Federal Reserve money printing, or it was going to collapse because reality would actually set in. So, how many advisors actually protected your clients against that? I mean, I would say hardly any of them. So unless you were in a position where, you made almost all the gains last year and didn't really participate in that many of the losses this year, then you don't have a reason to call me. But, if that's not the case, then I would go check out the website, thelibertyadvisor.com, where you can book a time to talk with myself and to get a free consultation to see if we can help put you on a better path. Again, that's thelibertyadvisor.com, and thank you very much, and hope to talk with you and your family soon. Take care.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.